Welcome back. You're listening to Real Talk with Brian and Dan on 1150 KKNW.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Dan. Our first guest today is Melissa Reeves of Story Fruition. Melissa is the founder of Story Fruition and is a public speaking and storytelling coach for executives, founders, entrepreneurs, and business owners. She conducts storytelling. Oh, wow, that's me. I don't know what's going on.
Hey.
I don't know what's going on. Sorry, Melissa. Sorry. I turned my phone over. She conducts storytelling for business professional workshops and provides one-on-one executive coaching to help leaders shine when they're public speaking by helping them craft their personal stories for professional use cases. Her career spans 20 years of sales, marketing, and technology. While also being a professional actor since childhood, she's found frequently sharing her own personal stories at the Moth Story Slams, Fresh Ground Stories, Ignite Seattle, and heard on NPR KNKX in January 2018. You're going to be there. Is that right?
I'll be heard.
You'll be heard on it. Okay. Melissa is also regularly seen on the improv stage at Unexpected Productions. She's a proud mother of 2 daughters. One is 16 and a musical theater kid, and her 21-year-old is about to graduate from college majoring in animation. That's a proud mom. She's also a mom to 2 silver tabbies, Totoro and Thor. I need to know the story behind Totoro. So
it's a Japanese animation film, and it's
funny.
Miyazaki. He's an amazing animator, and he writes animation like they're movies. And the Totoro's this big gray monster he's kind of a big monster that's fat with spots on his stomach, and that's exactly what my silver tabby looks like.
That's awesome. So we see a lot about your hobbies and interests, but can you go in depth? What are they exactly?
Oh, well, it's funny because when someone says, oh, you do improv, is that a nice hobby? It kind of like, I have a little bit of a reaction because I've always been an actor deep down, and my father never understood that, so he'd say, that's a nice hobby. And I'm like, I'm going to make money doing this. I'm going to make money doing this. And I was a musical theater major. That's how I got into Michigan, and I've always taken it seriously and to heart. So I do improv on a regular basis. I absolutely love working in Unexpected Productions. I mean, it's keeps you on your toes. We'll probably talk about improv a little more later, I'm sure.
But it's like love what you do and never work a day in your life, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
your dad was right in a way. It's a hobby, but you turned it into your career.
Well, if he were still walking this earth, he would probably say to me, now your acting makes sense in the work that you're doing. Because I always had a real job to him. I went and did sales and marketing. I did ad tech, and I really enjoyed it, and it was, what I did at the time. But we were always trying to figure out this actor in me and how it would be applied to my real day-to-day work. And now it finally makes sense.
So, Melissa, we like to ask each of our guests to share a fond memory of the home you grew up in. Tell us a story.
Yes. Well, that's a great question, because the thing is I grew up in a lot of different houses, right? So my father moved around a lot. In fact, the first house I can really remember was in Rockford, Illinois. And then we moved to Massachusetts, and then we moved back to Illinois, and then we went to Michigan and all this. But what I can say is my favorite memory would always be somewhere in one of the kitchens. Because my mother was this Oklahoma woman, and she just loved to cook. And, everything would gather around that kitchen. Even if we didn't have a meal together, it was just, that's where you go. And to this day, it's been very influential for me because I love to cook. I love to have my kids with me. I cook with my boyfriend. Like, it's just like, to me, the center of any home.
It's the heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
it sounds
awesome.
cliche, but it's true.
Right, right. So as we transition to your company, Story Fruition, why is it important that professionals have good storytelling skills?
Because it makes you more captivating. You're communicating to another human being or to a group of human beings, and we're not really taught how to tell a good story. We can read stories, but actually doing it in the verbal way.
It's a lost art,
learning mechanics,
right?
yeah.
It is, but the great news is it is coachable. It's something that people can learn. You can start to learn some basics and just become a little more vivid in your descriptions of people, where you are, how old are you, what are you doing. There's things that you can learn how to do so that when you're telling a story, people can see it. It's a mind movie that you're creating when you're telling a story. And I just think that when you become that, you actually start differentiating yourselves. People are leaning into you a little bit more and they don't even know why. It's not like they're consciously saying, what a great storyteller. They're just leaning in because you are connecting to them and sharing.
So I met Brian about 14 years ago, and over the last 14 years, as I've grown in my skills in business, the one thing I notice is, generally speaking, when we're talking about a problem that needs to be solved, Brian's telling a story, right, of an event, of something that happened and how he solved the problem. And I think that was very captivating, learning from him that, generally speaking, if somebody asks me a question, usually there's a story in a way to answer it.
It relates, engages, and builds trust. And that's why I go there, as I was mentioning before the show, anecdotal selling, where I'll share experiences. And that's one of the biggest things I bring to the table is 38 years selling houses. And so if it's happened in a real estate transaction, I've been there and done that. And so sharing the experience of others to help people relate to their needs to get their best outcome. And so that's how I use it in my job. And I'm sure, I'm intrigued. I'd love to consult with you about improving those skills. But
I applaud you, though, that you do it. Because what I find a lot of times is that people don't really put value in their own experiences. They think, and in sales, for instance, we were always told to do the case study. Tell the testimonial of a customer, and you've got to learn how to do that. But when you're really with the customer and you've sold the product and you've seen them respond to it and it's positive, that's probably even better.
Very powerful
story that you can tell.
Yeah.
So that's why the name is Story Fruition. Like, what is it that brought you to who you are today on your own career path? Like, why are you a realtor? How did you get there?
Right.
How old were you when you realized, I'm pretty good at this?
I haven't realized that yet. No.
You're pretty good, Dan. Yeah.
But we all have our paths, and they're chocked with stories.
Yeah. So how do you pick which stories to tell?
Another great question. And sometimes the story picks you. Sometimes it bubbles up and you just have to tell it and you don't expect it. And I really love those stories because they're kind of brewing inside me. And next thing you know, I was doing some creative writing, and I was wondering, why am I writing about cicadas? But I've been trained to not question it, just allow it to come out. And it turns out being this major metaphor in my life at the time that this story was told. And it's one of my favorite stories that I've ever written or shared out in a storytelling realm. But the stories kind of sometimes will pick you, but I think the very best stories are the ones where you have this aha moment. You learned something. And it could be, and in business, there's tons of prompts that we can have. So when was a moment that you were the hero? You saved the day. And what happened? Where were you? And what did you learn? And how did you transform from that moment? Those are the best stories. And those go a little bit beyond an anecdote. Anecdotes are great too, because they help color people's minds with what you're trying to get across. But a real story is where you start off in one place and then you end in a different place, and it could be a series of events. Some stories take years to actually live through.
That's true. Yep.
Very true.
Right? And you're not ready to tell them yet. So
what if somebody's nervous about public speaking at any level?
Who isn't?
Oh, good answer.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I mean, people would rather fall off a building being chased by a spider than to public speak, because death and bugs, fears of spiders and heights are more scary than actually, or public speaking is more scary than those things.
Yeah. The fear of public speaking.
Fear
I
of
think
public
it's
speaking.
Number 1 or 2.
Oh, it's huge. It's
Yeah.
absolutely huge. And I think it's because our mind gets in the way. We start getting off of our story and our thoughts and our value of what we're sharing, and we just are thinking about, oh my God, does my hair look okay? What are they judging me? Or, oh my God, are they going to ask me to do that? I hope they don't do that. And then you're out of the moment.
Yeah.
You're out of the moment, and that's really where I think paralyzes people. However, I have found that when someone's in a really more formal public speaking situation, like it could be like just a big sales meeting, or their company's got them out on the circuit and they've got to talk now. That is scary. Right? It's vulnerable. If you open with a personal story, though, it's a little more relaxing, because everyone loves to tell a story that they've lived through, especially. So that's where I kind of try to encourage, even like when I'm working with investors or when I'm working with the entrepreneurs, open with a story.
It's interesting.
Open with
This
a
is an
story.
unintended consequence of the what we do with our segments is asking you a personal story.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even think about that's why we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you were channeling yourself. So that's kind
Yeah.
of great. We open with it. And I've thought about it. Like I've spoke, in front of 15 people. I've spoken in front of 25 people. We do this radio program, right? So that was a whole new level of speaking.
Different level. That's
And
right.
I remember one time getting up to ask a question in front of like 5,000 people. And I turned and I looked at the people and I was like, whoa, right? So
Eyes on
no
you,
matter
pal.
what, it's like every level, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable so your answer is spot on. It's everybody who isn't nervous.
Right.
So why should entrepreneurs and founders in particular develop their storytelling skills?
Because it makes, I think, the founder more likable and approachable. I sit through a lot of entrepreneurial pitches where they're going in there and they're doing their investor pitches, and many will just go right to the data. Hello,
Right.
my name is
That's their
so and
how their
so.
mind works. Yeah.
This is who I am, or this is my name, this is my title, this is how much money I want from you, and here's my chart. And they dive in and they have all the data, and it's important data. However, there's so many opportunities that are missed because if the audience, especially in angel investors, we aren't scientists. And we sit in there and sometimes they'll talk as if we're a room full of scientists, and we're not, but we can understand a patient's plight, right? And we're pretty sure that founder probably has lived through a personal story with a patient.
Right.
And that's why they get up every day. That's why they're there. That's their story fruition. And so by opening and sharing that, literally the audience is already going to go, oh, I already know it. I know them more and I like them more. Because they're investing in the company and they're also investing in the CEO.
Right.
Do they like them? Do they believe in the team? So I think it's really important.
So being able to spin, in sales, we kind of, spin it a little bit, but also present the why behind it. Right, present not just the why, but the passion, the heart that solves the problem. And we talk about stories of the home you grew up in, the kitchen, right? Because that's our why. Is those are the things that we put together. We have a ton of questions, but we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to ask you one more.
Okay.
How can you strengthen your own storytelling skills regularly? How can someone?
Anytime someone asks you a mundane question during the day, give it a shot. Just go out there and do it. I had a client once, and she's like, I just don't think I'm that interesting. And I'm like, you know what? You actually are. And she is. She has amazing stories. She's had tribulations that she has overcome. She is an amazing human being. And, if someone would ask her, what are you having for breakfast? She'd be like, yogurt. And I'm like, no, try again. And then I'm like, where'd you get that yogurt? Where'd you get those berries? And then all of a sudden she started to realize, she's like, oh, I go to the farmer's market every Saturday morning and I buy these raspberries from this one particular farm, and her name is Gina. And every time I buy those raspberries, it's just so amazing, and it makes me welcome the weekend. That's a mini little story.
More interesting than yogurt.
Yeah, it's a little mini story. But, when someone in business asks you, why should I buy with, I don't have any money. She says, I remember a time when I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I was
USDA.
18 years old. Yeah, I was 18 years old and I was broke, and I was,
Yeah.
you can start telling a moment in your life when you had no money and you were able to come to some resources and solution. Those are great stories. So tell them whenever you think you can.
Awesome. So how do our listeners get a hold of you?
My website is probably the best way. So it's storyfruition.com. It's like fruit.
Fruition.
Yeah. And I'm on Facebook as well, and I have LinkedIn. And so Melissa Reeves, and it's Leaves with an R, Reeves. It's not like Christopher Reeve. I hear that all the time.
Gotcha. With an S. All right. So do you have any special offers for anybody listening today if they call you that you can offer them?
Yes, actually. So I teach workshops and I teach one-to-one coachings. So if anyone is interested in taking one of the workshops, just go to the Story Fruition Workshops tab, and they can reach out to me, and I will take off $25 off of their ticket to the workshop. And if they want to explore one-to-one coaching, which is where I'm much more intensive on that person and finding and mining their stories for usually a particular event. It might be an investor pitch, or they have a keynote coming up and they want to pepper in their own personal stories through the keynotes. those are good for one-on-one coachings, and I'll take off some money from that too.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much,
Thank
Melissa.
you.
After the break, we are welcoming back Rob Young of Oasis Senior Advisors, who will be discussing his story and his top signs that the elders should consider the type of retirement community. So come on back after this short break.